Hi, this is Marianne Tidwell, and I will be talking about the literacy demands of the science content classroom. I broke up the demands into 4 sections: listening and speaking, reading, and writing. I grouped listening and speaking together because I feel like they go hand in hand. I feel like the greatest demand for listening and speaking is getting students to think critically, to make predictions, to ask questions, and to analyze data. These are big concepts and big things that we're asking of students that can be very challenging. And also to take all of that and to articulate it in a discussion with a peer, the teacher, the whole class. And to be able to listen to others and respond to the ideas of others with reasoning and explanations, to be able to compare and classify the information, and to also really make connections to their lives. For example, if you're teaching a unit about magnetism, having students be able to talk about their experience with magnets. Even in the simplest form in an elementary classroom, they might have just experienced the magnets on the refrigerator, and they have to be able to talk about what they observed, make sort of a hypothesis about what they think happened, and be able to articulate this with, correct terminology and vocabulary to their classmates. As far as reading is concerned, we have informational texts, science textbooks, and this poses a great challenge for teachers and students because, again, every topic is an inch deep but a mile wide. So, it's really getting students to utilize informational text features. Do they know how to use the glossary? Can they read and understand graphs and diagrams and things like that? Can they identify patterns in what they're doing? And can they really make meaning of the scientific vocabulary? And again, make connections. That kind of comes at every step to help students get the most out of, the content. Finally, for writing, especially this kind of goes towards secondary classrooms when they're writing sort of lab reports. But even still, taking aspects of that into the elementary classroom, it's a very organized way of writing. It's very different than what they are used to. So can they, number one, create models and graphs, explain them, label them correctly, make sense of them? Can they identify a problem, make a hypothesis, talk about the results, analyze the results, and organize it in such a way that makes sense, that is clear and concise? Science writing, it's much different than any writing that would be done in an English or history class. It's much more organized, it's much more upfront, really, explaining it well. Can they do that in a clear and concise way? And can they translate these ideas to scientific talk? I also included a whole other slide on vocabulary because I feel like that really sets apart science from all other contents, because the scientific vocabulary is so unique, and a lot of the terms are ones that you only see in science classrooms. In the research and the reading that I did, they talked about critical vocabulary and comparing, the specific scientific terms, proton, neutron, for example, to terms that they would hear in everyday life, but that might translate differently in scientific language, like observe, collect, predict, words they are familiar with, but how can we talk about them in a scientific way? Do they know how scientists use those words in their own writing? And sort of following the science language. And what sort of are the skills and strategies to teach vocabulary? Really, it's just to make it meaningful for students, to make the connections, and to make it real with hands-on activities, again with this inquiry-based learning. To have, a word wall, and instead of just the words, have an actual example of what it is. For example, if you're teaching a unit on matter, not just having the word liquid, but having a little baggie next to it with a liquid inside. Really giving students the background knowledge that they might not have had before, but that they can have, so they can go on to the next topic. Finally, talking about English language learners and the science literacy, I read the Stanford article that Dr. Lee assigned, and what I thought was interesting was that it really stressed the skills and strategies that it stressed, I thought, were not just for ELL students, but could benefit all students. They really talked about a lot of discourse. That's the word they used a lot. Getting students to talk a lot, creating a very comfortable environment for them to talk and share what they know, even if it might not be in the most scientific terms. And then also it talked a lot about making models and graphs, specifically for the ELL students. This could be a way for them to present the information that they know in sort of a non-threatening way. Creating the model, here's what I know, and then as their English, gets better, that they can add more to the model, talk more about the model, but kind of giving them ownership and a sense of, confidence that I can, articulate what I know in a model or diagram, and then be able to present as my English gets better. So, that's my presentation. Thanks.